So I wanted to make this video because I know a lot of my audience is young, and I thought about doing something useful in terms of, things I would do today if I were a 20-something or 30-something-year-old. Wherever you live in the world, I hope this will be helpful for you. Obviously, being a 20-year-old or being a 30-year-old, it's a big difference, different decades, all that. I'm going to go through both things I would do, whether as a 20-year-old or 30-year-old today. I'm hoping you can stick to and listen to both sections because there's overlap and there will be things that you may find useful in both of the sections and each one individually. So first thing I would do, I would make sure that I have integrity, the right attitude, and that I know my values. This is very important, knowing your own values. So if you haven't done this exercise before, this is your first time, I strongly encourage you to do a Google search for a list of values. There are hundreds of values, and then go through them carefully and pick the values that resonate with you. So you may be surprised, you may be very surprised about what you find, what you learn about yourself. So don't limit yourself to only 5, 3, 10, 7 values. Go through the whole list and make sure you list all of them that really truly resonate with you. So by knowing your values, you are in a very strong position in knowing exactly how you're going to go about your own life. So that's the first thing I would do. That's where I would start. Because getting clear about your values brings clarity to who you are and what you stand for and the kind of people and experiences you attract in your life and the kind of people and experiences you do not tolerate in your life. Okay, so if I were a 20-something-year-old today, this is what I'd do. In terms of education, I would forget about college and university altogether. Obviously, everybody's circumstances are different. This is what I would do personally with the knowledge I have right now. And feel free to take this advice or leave it. It's up to you. If it doesn't resonate with you, just ignore it. But if I were a 20-something-year-old today, I would forget about college. I would forget about going to university. What I would do instead, I would go on a platform called Coursera.org or something along those lines, and there are many others the same. These platforms are used for short-term courses. Most of them are free. I think for the rest of them you pay a small fee to do the course or to get a certification in writing, like a proof or some evidence that you've actually completed the course. And I think courses are about, I don't know, depending on the type of course, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. In any case, less than 1 year. And you get, again, for some of them, you can get a certification of completion. So Coursera.org, again, and there are many others. You can just Google search, short-term online courses or certifications. In terms of work experience, if I were a 20-something-year-old, what I'd do today, I would try and get relevant experience in the field or line of work I would like to pursue by working for free initially for a very short term, and then use that work experience working for free to land yourself a paid job soon thereafter. I do not believe in working for free for longer than 3-6 months. 1 year at the maximum, but even that, it's a long stretch. I always believe in people being compensated for their work, but while you learn, if absolutely necessary, and there is no other way for you to gain relevant work experience in your own desired field, I strongly encourage you to work for free short term and then move on to getting paid as soon as possible. The reason why I encourage you to not work for free for too long is because that creates an imbalance, monetary imbalance, possibly spiritual and psychological imbalance, and it's something you definitely want to avoid. If I were to recommend the type of topics I think would be recommended to study to position yourself for success in the near future, long-term future, I'd say pick something from the list I'm going to give you shortly, or similar, in order to stay relevant. So some examples of skills you could study with short-term courses are sales, so learning how to sell products or services, ideas, how to influence people. This is very important. It's a life skill as much as it is a business skill. Marketing and promotions, including building a brand online and offline. Business analysis, project management, change management. These skills you can leverage in multiple fields in business. Cybersecurity, machine learning, or anything to do with artificial intelligence. In terms of financial courses, I would recommend any financial course that would teach you how to understand and make sense of financial statements of a business. To make clear, I'm not recommending any accounting or financial analysis that employees of the corporate world take on, because that's just, I don't feel that these are useful in the long term. And these would take years for anybody to complete. And what I do mean by short financial courses are courses that, for example, would teach you how to check whether a business is doing well or not, where there are opportunities for improvement and growth with a business, and how much would the business sell for, etc. So the closest thing that comes to mind is a mergers and acquisition short-term course. I'm going to give you a few extra things I personally would do today that have personally helped me in the last 12 years, and I think they're becoming increasingly more important. This could be interests you already have, or could be hobbies you may pursue if you find what I'm going to say next useful. So extra things I would do today, if I were a 20-year-old, I would study quantum physics, because time invested studying quantum physics, it's time well invested, because quantum physics explains the nature of our reality. That's just the truth. I would study chakra healing, energy healing, working with energy, any type of agricultural skills or farm work. If you have family who has land, learning how to grow food or rear animals, I think that's a life skill which will most likely become even more important in the years ahead. And these are just some of the things I would personally do today. So now I'm going to move the conversation to what I would do today if I were a 30-year-old. So hopefully, if you are a 30-year-old, you've been listening so far, previous section, what I would do personally if I were a 20-year-old, and some of those things may apply to you as well. Likewise, if you're a 20-year-old, you've been listening to the previous section, you may want to stick around for the next section, what I would do if I were a 30-year-old today. Maybe you'll find some things useful for you for now or in the future. So if I were a 30-year-old today, everything I said so far still applies. And in addition to that, in terms of education, I would forget about pursuing an MBA, Master Business Administration, or a master's degree, or any type of long-term certification, professional certification. Most of the professional certifications are very time-consuming. There are exceptions to that, so there are professional certifications out there that it only takes you a couple of weeks to a couple of months to complete. So in that case, yeah, okay, I think that would be something useful. It's because it's practical in terms of time and energy, commitment. But in terms of long-term, time-consuming professional certifications taking years of your life, energy and time, I would just ignore completely. They would most likely not be around they will not be in demand in the next couple of years, maybe even sooner. I think just to make sure that I just explain, I feel that we've already transitioned from an old way of doing things, like an old century, which technically we did, to a new century, and then a lot of the old way of doing things have still survived and they're still being sustained on a life support just based on inertia, because people have been, accustomed of doing things a certain way. We have requirements from the workplace, we have expectations from parents and family to do things a certain way, as it's expected of us, as it's been expected of them previously. So based on this, I can see that we have already moved to a new energy and a new way of doing things. But some things from the old world, they're still persistent for one reason or another. So that's basically at the basis of me making this recommendation. So if this resonates with you, I'm hoping you'll take some of these recommendations on board. But again, if they don't resonate with you, just feel free to leave them, no problem. If I were a 30-year-old today, and also applies if I were a 20-year-old today, I would, while in employment, I would work on building a business on the side or explore multiple side hustles and see which ones pan out and then pursuing those. Or I would save up money from employment and I would use that to acquire a business that I can, with my own skills and experience, help grow further and expand. In terms of money, if I were a 30-year-old or 20-year-old today, what I would do is I would make sure that I keep all my savings in gold or silver, coins or bars in my possession. So, not in a bank, not in funds, invested in gold, stocks, minor stocks or whatever. So I would make sure I have, gold coins and silver coins in my possession, ready to use, ready to trade if need be, or, ready to, keep them there as an asset for when the time comes that these will appreciate in value. I would definitely not be invested in stocks or bonds or funds, any of that. Not for the time being, not for the near future. I would just stay away from that. And if I were to invest in anything, I would invest in real assets. So real assets means, brick and mortar, a house, a business that cash flows, so which means brings you money on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. So, and then, gold and silver for appreciation in the near term to long term. So that's how I would keep my money. I would not have much money in the bank. I would make sure I have a lot of money in assets that either produce cash flow. So if you have property, that would mean rent. If you have tenants, so on. If you have a business, that will produce, revenue for you. And if you have investments in gold and silver bullion and coins, physical, so possession, you have them with you. That would mean that, whatever happens with the economy, with the inflation, you have at least some cover. You can rest assured that your future is secured. So these are my thoughts. Some things I would do today if I were a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old living wherever in the world. It's something that everybody can implement, everybody can do, and I hope you find, my perspective useful. Obviously, this is what I would personally do, but your circumstances may be different, and I understand that every person is unique, has their own circumstances. Feel free to adopt any of these recommendations if you see how they could be useful to you, and if they are not useful to you, they don't resonate with you, they don't apply to you. So, feel free to, ignore. Only focus on those things that you can implement. If anything I said resonates with you, please feel free to leave in the comments down below, and let's all share and learn from each other. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you again in one of my next videos soon. Take care.